Well, we have something interesting today. I was going through the monitor dungeon and opening up boxes and looking through stuff that might be interesting for the channel, and I came across this donation here that was in one of the giant boxes, and it's a Neotech 2500. And I'll get to how you can tell that here shortly, but I want to do a quick overview of the different versions of the Neotech chassis that you run across out in the wild. All the ones that have a 01 are medium res. All the ones that have a 00, I guess I overstepped there. 00s, like 2500, is standard res. 2501 would be medium res, and 2502, which I don't even think there are, would be VGA only. So, for instance, the 2500 here will be standard res. The 2515C that most of us are more familiar with is also standard res, but the 2501 would be medium, 2502 would be VGA only. Same thing for the 27s. You have 2700, which is the 27-inch standard res. 2701 is 27-inch medium res. 2702 is VGA only, 27-inch VGA only. Then you have the 3300, which is 33-inch standard res. 3301, which is 33-inch medium res, and 3302, which is 33-inch VGA only. So if you have, a number that ends in 00, it's standard res. 01 is medium. 02 is VGA only. So I wanted to put that out there because it does get a little bit confusing sometimes if you're not sure what you have. But this is a 2500, which is a bit different from the 2515C in the fact that the video signal does not connect up here where you normally would see the 2515C, the RGB connections here. I don't believe this heatsink is here either with that Q501. It could be, but I don't recall that being there. Some of the layout on the components is a bit different, but for the most part it's very similar. However, the video connection, like I mentioned, is not up here. It's actually coming off of the neck board right here, which is the same as it is on the medium res chassis. So the video signal here goes up and connects to the neck board, which is what you see on the 2501, for instance, and the 2502. The video connection hooks up to the neck board, not the main chassis. So that's one way you can spot that it's the 2500, not the 2515C. Secondary thing is here there is going to be a sticker on the heatsink here that says NT-2500 right there. Then also, unless somebody has removed it, on the back here it'll also say NT-2500. So, yeah. So this is a standard res Neotech NT-2500. And for everything I can see here, it is complete, but it's missing the HOT. And that doesn't bode well for us. Also, someone has completely recapped it, which also doesn't bode well because you never know if when you're working on a chassis that someone else has done previous work to, you never know if any problem you run into, or for instance, if it's not working properly, you don't know if the rework is part of the problem or not. If it had the problem beforehand and they capped it and it still had the same problem, you're not going to know that because there's no history with this unless they can provide the history. So HOT is missing. I do want to mention here on these chassis with all the ones that have the video signal that goes to the neck board here instead of the main board, there is a little capacitor in here, C450. This capacitor likes to short and take out the HOT, so I'm wondering, I haven't done any work to this. I pulled it out of the box, brought it up here, turned the camera on, haven't done anything to this, no testing or anything beforehand. So that little blue capacitor in there, that polycap or polypropylene is really what they are, C450, that cap likes to short and eat HOTs. So if you have a chassis like this where your power supply is good, and we'll get to how to test that here shortly, if you have a power supply that's good on your chassis but it's eating HOTs, I would highly suspect that C450. And we can actually check that really quick by just simply verifying that it's not shorted. And I guess I got ahead of myself here. The bottom of the chassis, it looks pretty good. I don't see any burn marks or damage or lifted traces or anything. Whoever did the cap kit on this appears to visually at least did a fairly good job. So assuming that everything is in the correct position and nothing's backwards, we'll see if that causes problems in the future. But all that stuff looks okay. But as far as C450, it goes right across the 2 points here for our collector and our emitter for our HOT. So if we go to continuity mode, and we just simply go to the 2 pads on C450, it's not shorted, so that's not our problem. Okay, it's common for the HOTs to get eaten by that bad C450. So if you have that problem, make sure that cap is, you're not really worried about what it reads, you're only worried about if it's shorted or not. As long as it's not shorted, it's going to be okay, hypothetically. So, alright, that being said, let's do our, I did an initial inspection already and nothing appears to be amiss. There's nothing missing or burned or broken. Somebody has replaced the switch mode power supply IC in here. So I think they're battling power supply problems. So someone has put in this weird wonky whatever they had on hand kind of thing, which is fine. Socket here for the switch mode power supply IC, and I'm assuming it's in there correctly, but I also think that this is one of the power supplies you have to remove one of the diodes. See, normally on the 2515C there's R117 up here that you just lift the output leg of R117 out and you can do your light bulb test off R117. And I'm wondering, if this is one of the ones you have to pull the diode out. I think there's a diode you got to take out of here. But ultimately, with no HOT installed, it's not really that big of a deal because we can just go to the collector, the HOT, and we should get a light bulb to light up. It doesn't. I'm not really too worried about B+ voltage at the moment. You adjust the B+ voltage right here, and it's turned up to, like, I don't know, it looks like it's about 78% right now, because that'd be 75 and that'd be 100. So it's roughly about, I don't know, 70, I guess 74%. I'll say it's 74. So I don't think it's a problem of this being adjusted incorrectly. It could be something with our MOSFET over here, or something with our IC they've replaced already. I'm assuming it's in there correctly. But let's just dive right in here, because visually everything looks okay. Let's dive right in and go right to the collector of our HOT. Because if everything is working, we should get our light bulb to light up by just testing the collector pad of the HOT to ground with our light bulb. And I'm not worried about B+ voltage adjustment yet. I just want to see if the power supply is functional. And I'll have to probably cut away and see if I can determine how to properly test the B+ on this and do a light bulb check and see a proper light bulb check over in the power supply by isolating it. I mean, like I talked about R117 on the 2515C. I'm not sure exactly how to do it on this one. I'll probably have to see if I can find out that information. I probably should have done that beforehand, but this is the amateur channel. And then we'll do it properly. But let's just see if we get anything off of this and go from there. Does that sound like a plan? I think that sounds like a plan. Okay, let's plug in our power. And okay, let's just turn this on. The high voltage is not going to power up with the HOT removed, so we don't have to worry about the flyback turning on and high voltage or whatever, because with the HOT out of the circuit, the horizontal drive section will not operate. So all we're going to get is the power supply, and I'll turn my fan off here. So let's just go ahead and turn this on. 1, 2, 3. Okay, nothing exploded or is making noise. Let's just touch the collector pad of our HOT, see if our light bulb lights up. No, it doesn't. So we've got, yeah, we have got power supply problems because I didn't even hear, I don't hear anything. The only thing that I hear is my isolation transformer humming. So this thing appears to be completely, totally dead. Well, that would explain why it was donated to me, because whoever worked on it probably couldn't figure it out, but let's see if we can figure it out. And looking at the footprint here, the IC is in there correctly. So if our power supply was functional, that should have worked. And the fuse, I looked at it visually and it looked okay visually, but let's just check it here. Okay, always remove the fuse from the holder because it could be backfeeding through something else. You always want to check your fuse for continuity out of the circuit. Okay, so with that done, we know the power supply is not working. So I think for educational purposes, I'd like to at least isolate the power supply so we can, if you have one of these in the future you're working on, we can figure it out. Let me look up how to isolate what component, like the 2515C, we can take R117 out. Let me research and see how to accomplish the same type of feature to isolate the power supply from the rest of the board on the 2500 here, and I'll come right back and then we'll do that and then troubleshoot and see what we can find with that. Give me a moment. All right, so you may hear my fans on now because it's been a few minutes, but I couldn't find anything that specifically states how to isolate the power supply section from the main board on this. This version of the chassis that has this thing here instead of the connection there and the external CGA connection and no R117 and all that, this is what's known as the full family version, because like the NT-2500 or 2701, 2702, there's two versions of those, which apparently there's two versions of this, maybe two, I'm not sure. But those are known as the Gen Shi one or something like that. It's Li Chin. I wasn't even close. Li Chin. If you have the R117 version of this chassis, then it's the Li Chin version. If you have one like this where it doesn't have R117, it's the full family version. And that appears to be what this is, because the way you check this is you have to put your meter lead on, it is, let's see, on the connection point of D106. So that's this diode here. So I don't think we can actually remove that from the chassis to isolate the power supply, but there's no R117 here. So this is actually the full family version, and you check B plus at D106. And I'm thinking it's probably the output here, the cathode, I believe it is, with the line on there. If I'm wrong, you can correct me. And then we set B plus to 100 volts. So on this version, it's 100 volts, and you test on D106. On the Li Chin version that has R117 here, you check at R117, and you set B plus to 125. So we're in for a little bit of an adventure here, I think, when it comes to this. So we're going to have to figure out why we're not getting anything out of the power supply. Now I'm hesitant to say it's the switch mode power supply chip, but I've got a whole bunch of them, and we can just try a new one. And that socket is not the best either, but if we, oh, this looks like okay, this might have been the original one. This one has solder on the legs. This is definitely a used one and not the original. Well, let me grab some replacements here, and I think they're in here. Yes, Neotec, right there. So let me grab a brand new one that I know is good, and then we can see if it has any kind of life or activity again. Actually, let me get a different one here. I'm looking for a brand new one. That one's used. That one's brand new. Okay, these are all good and known working, but let's just put a brand new one in there just so we can have some type of peace of mind. I'll leave that out in case we blow this one up. But okay, so the IC is, the socket is correct. Let's go ahead and install this brand new one. Oop. While we try to avoid smashing our head on the overhang of my test bench, because that was not successful, but hopefully this will be successful. Okay, that is in there. I don't like that socket one bit, but all right, brand new chip. Let's go ahead and just turn it on the way that it is right now and see if we have any other signs of life now that that known good IC is installed. Turn the fan back off. Okay, let's see if we hear anything or see anything here. 1, 2, 3. No, we don't. We should, with the HOT out, we should hear it ticking. We should hear a tick, tick, There might be a tick, 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 tick. I think the fast tick, 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 tick is the power supply, and the slow tick, tick, tick is HOT. But we don't hear anything. Nothing. Okay, so it's likely not our IC, but we don't have anything. Now, I'm going to take this filter cap out. Let's see if it's even charging on the filter cap. Close your eyes here. Oh, hey, there we go. So we are getting AC on the filter cap. Let's remove the filter cap, because I've seen the filter cap cause this problem before on other Neotechs. And there is some kind of goo on the bottom of here. There's whatever that is. And this. Now there is glue. There is this. Well, now that's the glue from this. This stuff here is hydroscopic, meaning that it absorbs moisture. But so I don't think this is our problem. But it's worth at least seeing if this is a possible issue, because I've seen these filter caps go bad, but this stuff here is just that hydroscopic glue. Let's go ahead and I have replacement filter caps, but there's no need to replace it if we don't need to. Let's go ahead and just test it here. And we can do that quite simply by putting this into slot number 2, this one into slot number 1. Close that down, make sure the connection's good. And this one goes to positive, this one goes to negative, and let's just see if it reads 330 or so. Here we go. We have 290. 16 ohms, 0.8% loss. 290? I mean, that's kind of out of spec, but that's not going to cause it to not turn on. Let's try it again here. Yeah, 291. 291. Let's get an actual let's get a brand new one and see what a brand new one reads. This is not going to cause our problem, but I want to put a better one in there. Okay, it's going to be fun digging through all this now. What are these ones? Those are 560. Those are for a K7000. What about these? Those are 680 for, I think, the Geo 7. That's a 270 for the 7400 series. Here's a whole bunch of Polo. 470s are for Polo there. Well, here we go. 680s here. Here's a 200 volt 330. We can use that. Yes, the original one is 400 volt, but there's only 115 volts running through this thing. So let's just throw one of these on there just for testing. We can always put this one back in later. You don't want to go down in voltage. You want to go same or higher. But the fact that there's only 110 volts running through this thing at any given time, we can use a 200 volt 330 and be just fine. Trust me. You may be screaming at the screen, but, or phone or whatever you're watching this on, but that's fine. So let's see what this one reads that's brand new. Here we go. $292. Huh. Well, again, this is not a true ESR meter, and this one's even more of a loss than this one was. Well, given this brand new one is reading the same as the old one, we'll just reuse the old one. Well, it's not part of our problem. I have seen, I have seen this be bad and cause the Neotech to not fire up at all, but in this case, that's not our problem. Because it's never that easy when you're doing the videos. When you're not doing videos, hey, there's the problem, quick fix, but in this case, no, it's never easy. So we can, at least we have some kind of path to go down here, knowing that our power supply is our problem. So we'll just go ahead and get this put back in. Negative is the black side. Don't put the filter cap in backwards. You're going to really regret that when you power it up. Okay. Why are you acting this way? There we go. And she's in. I know you can't see, but I'm just heating the pads up and pushing it down. So it's back in. And let's make sure we have continuity in this socket, this oddball socket here. And we'll disconnect our power. We don't need that for the moment. So let's check and make sure we have continuity in our socket. So let's just do this. So meters in continuity mode. So this pin here to here, this pin to here, this pin to here, and this one to here. Yep. And now the other side is going to be more fun. Alright, so our IC is good, connections are good, no cross rings, nothing shorted. So, well, much like the other Neotechs, there's a resistor that can go out of spec that can completely kill the power supply. So we'll have to see if we can troubleshoot that. We can also check our MOSFET, make sure our MOSFET's good. But let's check some of the passive components here first. So let's just start with some of these resistors and make sure they're not reading some oddball number. You know, and if this was a professional channel, we'd grab the schematic and we'd look and trace the pathways out, but my history of troubleshooting and experience just tells me to start testing stuff as I see it. So R106, it looks like, is, well, it's reading 800K? Well, this is an odd thing to see. Look at the meter here. It's climbing. So on the other chassis that, like the 2515C for instance, all the ones that have the R117 up here, those have a, I believe it's R106 that can go out of spec and cause the power supply to be dead. And it just so happens this one also has R106, and look at that, it's 2 meg. So let's take R106 out of the circuit, and if R106 is open, then our switch mode power supply chip is not going to function. So let's just grab R106 here and see if we can yank this guy out. I know you can't see what I'm doing, but grab one side of this and it should come right out. There we go. Now the other side. There we have it. Okay, so here's R106. And is it going to read open? Shouldn't read 2 megohm in circuit. Yeah, see 800K. So that's not bad. Well, I don't know what R106 is supposed to read. I don't think it's 800K. You see here 0.8 megohm, that's 800K, 800 kilo ohm. I don't think that's what that's supposed to read. Uh, 270 is probably right. If we look up the resistor color code on this, this is silver, red, yellow, gold. So let's go to let's just type in resistor color code, 4-band resistor on DigiKey. Okay, so if we go here and type in what we say, silver, red, yellow, gold. So I guess it's gray, isn't it? Gray, yellow, no, red, yellow, gold. 820K. So that's correct. R106 is not our problem. Damn it. I just seem to recall that being a different reading on the other ones, but it's not. So let's go ahead and reinstall it. I may be going about this completely wrong, but I don't have that much experience on the full family versions of these things. Usually it's the much easier versions with the R117 up here that I'm familiar with. So, well, that's good. So it's not R106. It doesn't even attempt to fire. It doesn't do anything. So we'll figure it out. Might take a little bit, but not a problem. We know it's not a connection on our IC. We know the IC is good, it's brand new. Let's test some of this other stuff real quick. This resistor here, 6K, this one here, 220, we know that one's okay, 2.2 megohm, and pretty sure that's off the degauss circuit, so I'm not worried about that. I don't see any other resistors that are visibly bad. 10 ohms, that one's fine. Well, let's just test our MOSFET, Q101 right here. And like most MOSFETs, we should get a 0.5 voltage drop, which from what I believe is collector, no, you have the gate, the drain, and the source. So here is the source, and if we go to diode mode and then we go, no, I'm sorry, the drain, red on drain, we should get like 0.5 to the source and 1.0 to the gate, something like that. Okay, so I had it backwards. The black wire goes on the drain. So drain to source, there's our 0.5. Then we should get like 1.0 to the gate. Okay, 1.3. So that MOSFET is not our problem. Is there anything visually that we can see? No, I don't see anything visually when it comes to cracked joints or something. It looks like maybe R130 is our output. If we look at our power supply here is completely completely independent. This is ground. And I want to say that maybe R130, which goes this way. Trace back our HOT. That runs through yeah. I'd really like to isolate our power supply from the output. And it's either going to be, looking at this, it's either going to be R181, R121, which is too small of a wattage. R130 is too small of a wattage also. I'm betting it's probably R181. If we look at this, yeah, R181 is a much larger wattage. And I could look at the schematic, yes, but where's the fun in that? Somebody's done some repair to this. And if it works, it works, but that's one of the problems of trying to go through here and fix something somebody else has previously worked on, because you don't know what they've done. But unless there's something on here killing our power, so that's what I want. Let me cut away and do some research and some testing and find out how to isolate the power supply from the output on this chassis specifically, and I'll come back and we'll go over some things and see if we can find something at that point. Well, I spent about half an hour and I could not find any details on how to successfully isolate the power supply on the 2500 from the rest of the chassis. So I went and got a 2701, which is the same type of setup with the D106 versus the R117 and things like that, the full family versions. And I went through and did just some compare and contrasting readings, and I think I found the problem, or at least a contributor to the problem. This resistor here that I had measured earlier that was in the megohm, what was it, R102? It was in the megohm. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be 39K. Now, how do I know that? Is because I went over here to R102 on this 2701, and look what it reads. Well, in circuit it's reading 30K. I took this one out, and out of circuit it reads, can we see that there? It reads 25 megohm, 30 megohm, 35 megohm, 40 megohm. So R102 is open, completely open. Should be a 39K resistor. Now, how I can verify that is if we look at this, the color on this resistor, or the color code, is orange, white, orange, gold. Orange, white, orange, gold. If we look here, we got orange, orange, white, orange, gold, dun dun dun, 39K. So we have an open R102, and I talked about how this glue in here is hygroscopic, and it likes to absorb moisture, and this thing is stuck right in the middle here and had a bunch of glue all over it. So I think the glue has permeated that and damaged this resistor. So I'm going to have to find a 39K ohm resistor and stick that in there and see if we get any kind of signs of life. And it's not really that crucial that we isolate the power supply on this, because even if there was something wrong with the chassis, let's say there's something wrong with the actual horizontal section and the power supply was functional, you'll just get a ticking, tick, 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 tick. So the fact that we're not even getting the tick, tick, tick means that there is definitely something wrong in the power supply. If something over here was bad or shorted, keeping the horizontal from firing up, even without a HOT, you would still get the power supply going tick, tick, tick. You should anyway, hypothetically. So the fact that we're not getting that means that we still have a power supply problem independent of this, even though it's connected. So we're not going to worry too much about trying to isolate. That's really kind of a situation where you have, if it's going tick, 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 then at least you know your power supply is working. For the most part, you would still need to verify that your HOT isn't shorted and likely try to isolate the power supply from the rest of the chassis. Now, I'd like to figure, let's tackle one problem at a time. Let's get the power supply at least making signs of life and then go from there. How about that? Let's do that. Handshake? Okay, let's do that. Now I gotta find a 39K ohm resistor. that's going to be the ultimate test here. So I'm going to dig out, you know what? I have a 2515C here, and wouldn't you know it, there is no resistor there on this one. So this one here is red, orange, gold. That's not going to work. Well, I'll have to dig further here. I've got a piece of crap MacVision. I could still probably find something on here. Blue, silver, orange, gold. Let me do some digging and try and find a appropriate 39k ohm resistor, and I'll come right back. Well, I figured it out. I've isolated the power supply from the rest of the output, and I'll show you that in a moment. But I was also incorrect. When you have, well, in this instance, we don't have a HOT installed, so you won't hear the tick, 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 tick. With an isolated power supply section, or even with a non-isolated power supply section, if the horizontal output section is actually okay, then all you hear is one little quick tick. You'll hear a quick tick from the switch mode power supply trying to come online, and that's all you'll hear. You hear a quick little tick, tick, but you won't hear the tick, tick, tick like I was explaining. That was an error on my part. So after replacing, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. It's been like an hour. So we had originally R102 was completely open. I couldn't find a 39k ohm resistor itself from all my spare parts over here in the death closet, if you will. So I found a 22k and a 15k, and combined in series here, they actually read like 39.2k out of circuit. In circuit, it's more like 33k, but that's fine. If I get this in frame here, ohms, and if I go to this leg and this leg, it's 39, okay, 38.06, okay. So R102 is now replaced. After replacing the open R102, this now works the way it's supposed to as far as the power supply goes. So let me give you a demonstration here. I'm just going to, without any light bulb hooked up or any load on it at all, if you recall before it was completely, totally dead. Now you get one little quick chirp, or tick of the power supply trying to come online, and without a load on it, that's all it does. So I'm going to turn this on here. You can get a sound check here of what this sounds like. I'll see if I can get it to close to the camera as possible. So I'm going to turn this on here. Power is connected right here. And let's see if we can get this to do this one little quick chirp here. 1, 2, 3. There. Turn it back off. I don't know if you heard it. A little very faint chip or chirp or click, whatever you want to refer to it. I don't know if it came through on the camera, but one little quick tick, and that's all you get. So at least we have signs of life now. And I want to, well, let's go ahead. I want to put the original IC back in and see if it's good. Let's do that later. But for now, how do we isolate the power supply section from the regular output? Like on the R117 I mentioned, you lift that leg of R117 and it isolates the power supply from the output of the rest of the horizontal section. How do we do that on this one? Well, it turns out that you simply remove the cathode leg of D106. So I had talked about earlier D107, or did I? I was describing D106, and I think I was actually testing D107. Let's see here. Yeah, I think I was describing D106 and pointing at D107. I couldn't, it's been too long. I haven't gone back and reviewed the footage because I'm an amateur. But it's D108, D107, and D106. Now I think I was talking about D106, but showing D107. D106 is the far one over here. And what you want to do is the cathode here with the side with the stripe, you lift that out of the chassis. So I have desoldered this leg of D106. It's out of the chassis. And now our power supply is isolated from our main output to the rest of the horizontal and the rest of the chassis. So if I was to connect a light bulb to the anode side of D106, so the cathode side is the side with the stripe. The anode is the side without the stripe. So what we do here is going to seem kind of unconventional, but we have to try and attach our light bulb to the anode side, which is down in here between the transformer and the diode. So let's clip right there. There we go. And if we go to the frame here for ground, and we have power still connected right here, this should work. So if we turn this on here, 1, 2, 3. Ta-da!
Yes! Look what I have created! I have made fire! I have made fire!
So we now have a functioning power supply after replacing R102, and it is isolated from the rest of the chassis. Now how we can verify that is if we actually disconnect this and go to the collector of the HOT, which we tried before, and it's actually this trace right there where it says Q402. If we touch that, light bulb does not light up, nothing. So we now have no output to our horizontal section by lifting the cathode of D106 out of the circuit. But you have to connect your light bulb or your load on the system to test the B+ on the anode side, which is the side closest to the transformer here. So there you go. Now, how do we test our B+? Well, same difference here. We can go to volts DC, and we put our negative lead on the frame, and we touch the cathode of D106. And we should have, you know, the voltage should be 100 volts for this, the full family version. So if we go to the cathode of D106, 111 volts, 112. So we need to lower the B+. Here's my screwdriver. Let's move it to roughly, so on that 2701 that I had earlier, I showed the B+ pot's actually in the middle. So we talked about this being at like 73%. Let's turn this to the middle. Well, actually, no, that makes it go higher, doesn't it? Is it supposed to be 125? Oh, interesting. 120, maybe it's supposed to be 125 volts. I'm not sure really what, I don't think it can go down to 100 volts. If I turn this completely down, that right now the B+ is completely zeroed on the pot. And do we have 100 volts? Yeah, we only got 105. So maybe, I think this is supposed to be 125 volts. Let's put this dead center. And I think this is supposed to be 125 volts, not 100 volts. It gets very confusing because there's multiple versions of these chassis, but obviously if I turn the B+ 100% down and we can't even get to 100, it's 105 is the lowest it goes. It's supposed to be 125 like the regular 2515C or something. So, oh yeah, 124. So with this light bulb, it's not a perfect analog to a CRT, but it's pretty close. So I'm 100% positive this is supposed to be 125 volt B+, not 100. There's not a lot of documentation on the 2500 series. So, okay, success. So that's how you do all that. Fantastic. Okay, now let's get that D106 back in the chassis, back in the circuit. And what we're going to have to do is install an HOT. Now that we know our power supply is good. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I forgot. I want to check this original IC. So let's get the replacement IC out. And let's put the original IC back in. So I think all of this effort and work and everything that someone previously did to this, trying to get this fixed, they overlooked R102, and I think that might have been the whole problem with this. Well, of course, we're far from having this fixed. We just have a power supply that works now. We don't even know if anything's wrong over here. So with that fixed, let's hook up our light bulb back up here, actually. There we go. Let's see if it fires the bulb up. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Yes. So our original IC is good. Well, that's a relief. I'll put this away and put this back in the deal up here. All right. So now we can get D106 back in the circuit. let's grab an FJL 6920, and we're going to need an insulator. And here we go. And I'm hoping that someone simply removed the HOT because they thought it might have been bad and didn't fix it, so they just robbed it for another chassis or something. That's what I'm hoping, because I don't have a lot of these FJL 6920s to put in here, so I don't want to go through a bunch if it's unnecessary. So I'm going to use this silicone insulator. Now, the original factory HOTs on these Neotechs didn't have the exposed back like this, so you didn't need to use an insulator, but don't get caught in the idea that if the old one didn't need one, the new one doesn't need one, because the old one was an enclosed package and didn't have the exposed back like I just showed. So because the FJL has the exposure, we have to install an insulator. But I also realized just now that we don't have a screw and a nut, but that's okay. I have plenty of those. When I was in the military, they had a big truck that was a parts runner that would run between various commands and things. On the back window had a big sticker that said, ground pounders. We screw, we nut, we bolt. So I always think of that from time to time. Or not all, you can't always from time to time, either always or from time to time, but from time to time I think of that whenever I talk about hardware. We screw, we nut, we bolt. So here is this, and I got something right there that'll work just fine. So okay, let's get this in here. And it's already been recapped and looks like it's got a good job of being reflowed, so maybe all we had to do to this was, I might go through and do some more strategic reflow, but main reflow is done. If we can get away with only having to replace this resistor and this thing come back to life with no issues, that'd be a great win here for us. I think what I'll do here is try and preemptively put this through here like so. I think that's going to be a little bit easier for us to try and get this in here. There we have it. I think that'll do. And if I was a smart man, I would have put the screw in from the other side. But I think I can make this work. Yeah, that'll work just fine. Okay. We'll add a little bit of solder to this. Then we'll make sure it doesn't read shorted in circuit. We don't really got to worry about clipping the legs on this. I will anyway, but because the frame here is so much taller, we don't really have to clip the legs on this, but I will anyway here. Alright, after a good inspection and everything, I think that's going to be enough for us to be able to reinstall this and give it a try. Now there are some things I want to go over here real quick that I didn't mention before, but there's on all these darn Neotechs, there's two separate horizontal holds. There is a horizontal hold here that actually says H hold, and there's another one here that says H phase, and you have to kind of use these in combination because H phase kind of shifts the image left and right. It's like another word for horizontal position. And so if you adjust the H hold too far one way or the other, it can actually put the chassis into shutdown mode. So you want to be careful on that. And then also if you adjust H hold and you simply can't get it to lock on, you want to try to adjust your H phase, because if the H phase or the H position is too far one way or too far the other, it won't lock on with the hold either. So you have to use these holds and these phases in combination with each other to try and get your sync to line up. And then I realize now, as I discuss this, that I want to make sure that X-ray pot, the shutdown pot's in the right location. So, because people mess with those, not knowing what they're doing. And if we look at this 2701, which is the same chassis, it looks like it's pointing pretty much at the, what, the 7 o'clock position? 7:30. And that looks like this one's roughly in the same position. I'm actually going to go about right there with it. Okay, so that was close enough. All right. And I'm just using that one as a guide because I know that one works. I already repaired that one previously. So, okay, I think... Oh, no, I forgot. There's also another pot here that says phase. I'm not actually quite sure what that one does. Then you have subvertical size and vertical linearity. So I'm not sure if phase has to do with a vertical position, a secondary vertical position. Just like this one has H phase, this might be V phase. Since we have sub V size and vertical linearity, this might be a sub vertical position. But anyway, wanted to point those out. So I think we are good to go. Neck board looks fine. And I guess what we can do here is try and wipe these back and forth and set them to a good nominal middle position like I normally do with these. And for all I know, we could power this up and it blows the HOT immediately, or power it up and is in vertical collapse, or who knows what. But the first phase of repair is complete. Let's get this on a tube, turn it on, and see if it's any worse or better or works just fine. Let's find out. Okay, so we're all hooked up on a tube. I have my U5000 test tube here that I've been using for a while. The K7000 tube I ended up putting in my NBA Jam at the arcade. But anyway, so this is a standard resolution tube and yoke, and all these standard resolution chassis are all interchangeable with each other. You have the K7000, the K7400, the U2000, the U5000 is standard res mode, and even medium res on some cases. The Henrix Polo, the Neotec 2515C, 2500. If you have a standard res yoke and tube, and you have a standard res chassis, there's a 99.99999% chance that you can just put it on there and have no problem. So that's the case here. This is totally fine with a U5000 yoke and everything. So we're all hooked up here with a video signal. I was able to successfully use a spare connection here that I had in my little box underneath the bench here for all my different types of video connections. So that's all connected. We have our power hooked up. We got our anode, neck, yoke, ground, and video, and power, and remote. Everything's connected. I even have our B+ ready to test here on the cathode of D106 over there, and then to ground. So actually I'm just going to go to this like that. So, okay. Let's turn it on, see if it has life and what we get here. Oh, and I'm using an X-Men PCB here just for a video signal. I didn't realize you can't see it, but there it is. So, yeah, let's turn it on here, cross our fingers, see if we have any life. 1, 2, 3. Yes, and 138, that's not good. Maybe I was wrong. I need to adjust that B+, and let's turn this back off, and let's put this back down to where it was. Let's go back to about right there. And what do we have now? 120. Okay, yeah, so it is supposed to be 125, but I'm going to go a little bit more. But that just shows you how off it is sometimes using that light bulb. And as far as the B+ here, you can see I'm connected to the cathode there of D106 like we were on our test just a few moments ago. So back on. Okay, 125. And what do we get as far as anything on the screen here? We're not focused, but so far nothing. Do we have any neck glow? Yes, we have right there. You can see we have neck glow. Or we did. There it is. I lost it. It's there. You can see it right there barely. Oh, I hit the wrong. Dang it. There. Back on. Okay, so we have a good functioning monitor as far as, or chassis as far as B+, and we have neck glow, but I didn't see anything on the screen yet. Oh, there it is. Haha, yes! And, oh, boys and girls, it's working! we're just going to have to see if we can bump up some colors and things like that. Fan-freaking-tastic. One little resistor here, you little bugger. Okay, well, let me set up the old tripod here. And let's see if we can work some magic on here. Sorry about the shaky cam, but as I always say, this is the amateur channel, so... Oh, I need to... Not sure why that's making so much feedback noise. I've already recapped this audio chip, but okay, it's working. Let's see about some focus. That's pretty good there, but let's do, okay, brightness all the way down, contrast all the way down, screen pot up till we get raster lines, or retrace lines. I don't get any, that's with the flyback maxed out. This may need a new flyback. All these Neotechs need new flybacks. But no, the flyback is maxed out. This G2 voltage or screen brightness is maxed out right now. Turn our contrast back up. Brightness back down. H position is H phase. H size will decrease. Yeah. That's as low as the H size gets. Let's go to the menu here. And let's go to screen check. You know what? Let me grab an MK because this this X-Men board was a mistake. I don't know why it's all of a sudden giving me feedback. I already recapped the sound chip and it wasn't doing that before. But let's try my trusty MK2 here. Okay, 125.4 on our B+, that's good. And the MK2 has less intensity on the video output. So we may need to, let's see, there's our image, it's working. We might have to, this flyback undoubtedly likely needs replaced, but until then, we'll just crank up these RGB pots. How about that? So all 6 pots are maxed out. And we need some vertical linearity adjustment and more focus adjustment. Oh man, yeah, this flyback's on its way out. But we can replace that later. It's outside the scope of this repair for this video. Let's do diagnostic tests, monitor patterns, crosshatch. Yeah, so H phase. See, I can't move the image any more left. I'm out of range on the adjustment pot on the remote board. So that's when you go to the main chassis back here and adjust this one that says H phase as a secondary H position, and there you go. So roughly, I'd say there. And we have linearity problems down here, so let's move and adjust our vertical linearity pot that I showed before. That's right about there. Now let's move our vertical center. See, that's as high as it goes. I need to go a little bit higher, so we'll go to our phase pot by the vertical section and adjust that. Oh no, that's a pin cushion. Okay, interesting. So that's not a vertical phase like I thought it was. So vertical size, that pot is scratchy. Wow. Well, H size, that is the least amount of horizontal size that we have. We may have to swap out the width cap. However, this is not a Neotech yoke that is specifically for the 2500. So I'm not going to do that for this video because we have horizontal size adjustment, but I think that it's because this yoke is maybe 1.2 ohm for horizontal versus 2 ohms. You know, it's going to be fine. We have adjustment, we have horizontal size functionality, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. So this needs a new flyback, and it needs, well, that's about it. It probably just needs a new flyback. The reason the image is so dull, I'm not quite sure on that. It's the fact that I have that flyback at 100%, we don't even see the retrace lines, it just needs to be replaced. So I'll put a new flyback in and take care of that. That won't be an issue. Let's turn our brightness. Brightness is all the way down right now, so if we turn this back down and turn our brightness back up right there, contrast is maxed out. So right now our contrast is maxed out. Brightness is right where it needs to be, right there. All of our color pots are maxed out. Contrast is maxed out. Flyback is maxed out. Almost. I turned it down a little bit, I think. But that's the best picture we can get. And it's pretty out of focus, too. Right there is about as good as I can make that. And it's pretty dark. Well, I got the blue background there. That's good. And it's working. Not sure why. That's more like it. Oh man, it's just really bad. And this tube isn't that great, that's why it's a test tube, but yeah, I mean, for the purposes of this video, it's fixed. When it comes to trying to get this to look a bit better, we'll turn the green down slightly. And I mean, that's the best image that I can get with what we have. And it's not that bad, but as far as, I don't want to spend an hour tweaking this, because I mean, you see, you have the red background, that's good. And we had the blue background here, that's good. We had the blue background on Midway Presents, that's good. It's just kind of dim. And I think that's probably more this tube than anything. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. You can see. But it could be better. So I'm going to change the flyback, do a little bit more independent spotty reflow, and do some more testing later. But you can see our B plus is spot on 125. Now, it makes me wonder here, because B plus does affect your horizontal size. And I can't turn this down to 100 volts. I mean, I'm already at like 80% of the B plus pot being off. If I turn it any more, it'll be 100% all the way down. And you saw that testing before. I cannot get this. There's no way there's no way this chassis is 100 volts. There's no possible way, because even with it completely turned 100% down, the most I'd probably be able to get is probably like 110 or something. And just as a little example here, if I adjust the B plus while it's running, you can see how it affects the horizontal size. So as I adjust the B plus here, we're at 125.2. If I turn this down, we're at 121 right now. If I turn it down even more, it's 119. If I go up, there's 128, 129, back down to 125. So you can see how the B plus 125.2, how the B plus adjusts or affects your size there. So I think that the horizontal is just down to this yoke is not exactly what this chassis needs, and you can fix that yourself by changing out the width cap, which in this case it looks like it's C424. Let me look here, I can't tell. Let me turn this off and I can tell you real quick which cap is the width cap on this chassis. So yeah, it's C423. C423. This cap right here, right? This poly cap right here, right behind the yoke connection, that one right there, next to that linearity coil, or right next to that coil. That cap right there, C423, that's your horizontal size cap. In this case, it's like 500 something. So you would need to go higher. The higher the rating, the lower the width. So we want to increase that value to decrease our width. And we'll turn this back on here real quick. So I mean, it's working. It just needs a new flyback for this dim image, and otherwise, yeah, I think this is good to go. We just had this bad resistor, and how come I have no picture yet? There it is. I just think this tube is likely. The tube is likely part of our problem, and the fact that I should get retrace lines by maxing out that flyback, and I'm not. So even if you have a weak tube, you should still get retrace lines, and I don't get those retrace lines. So it needs a new flyback, a little bit more reflow, and otherwise I think this is now repaired. So for the purposes of this video, we just had a faulty R102, and that's what was keeping this from working. And of course, a missing HOT. But that's probably pulled long ago in an attempt to try and salvage it for something else, and an attempt to fix this, and they didn't find the R102. So, okay, I know I learned something. I've been babbling on here for like 10 minutes, and I'm sorry, but I know I learned something on this repair. I'm sure you guys learned something on this repair. If you have one of these come across the bench, and you want to know how to test your B+ light bulb test and set everything, here you go. That's how you do it. And I learned along with you at the same time. So if you see here, this thing's going from 117 to 122.4. Actually, I'm going to get this back to, oh, see, now this goes all over the place. 118, 116, 115. I think there's 125, 125.0. So it depends on what's on the screen that affects your B+ there. So that's good. More droning on here, but thanks very much for watching. I know we all learned something on this one. Hopefully it helps you out in the future, or anybody out there in the future. So I appreciate it. Make sure you comment down below if you liked it, what you think. If you have a comment, something to say, I missed something, hey, check this, you dummy. Please put that down there. Otherwise, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.